بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, brothers and sisters in Islam. Peace and blessing of Allah be upon you all, brothers and sisters in Islam. Um, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today, inshallah, I'm going to record this video, and the topic, inshallah, is about um, many Islamophobes, those anti-Islam, whether they're Christian, Jew, or atheist, whatever you name them, or Hindu, whatever, they come up with ridiculous claim that Quran chapter 55, verse 19 and 20, um, they claim that there is um, scientific error to do with that water, fresh water, and salt water. They never mix. And let's first start by sharing the Quranic verse in question, so we know what we are talking about. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, let me share my screen here first. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Share. Okay. Sure if you can see with me. Okay. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Okay. Chapter 55 here. Okay. Verse 19 and verse 20. Okay. Let me share here screen. I'm not sure. Can you see? Yes. I believe you can see the screen. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is a translation of the meaning of the verse. Okay. Allah refers to Allah. He merges the two bodies of fresh water, fresh and salt water. Well, he merges. Okay. So the first word refute the claim. The very first word, okay, here, after he, indicates the fresh and salt water merges. Well, you go look up the meaning of merges in any dictionary or on Google, whatever. Okay, so they do meet. Okay, so when fresh water from a river flows into an ocean, salty water of an ocean or a sea, so they merge. Okay, they merge. Okay, he merges the two bodies of fresh and salt water. We'll explain, inshallah. So the second word here refutes the claim. Okay, but we'll keep going. Okay, right. The next verse 55, 20. Yet between them is a barrier. They never cross. They never cross. Okay. What does that mean? Again, they make the claim here. They say by saying they never cross to try to claim that fresh water and salty water never mix together. Okay, when in the previous verse here, he merges the two bodies of fresh water. This is not a contradiction. This is not a contradiction. And again, those guys need to understand. Okay, so you have to be fool. You have to be total tool to think that the Quran doesn't know that fresh water flow into a salty water and don't mix. You have to be total tool and fool, because it says here merges the two bodies. It is crystal clear. Okay, even if you're blind, you can listen to it right now. I'm speaking. He merges the two bodies of fresh water and he merges the two. He merges. Okay, you try to ask Google or look up a dictionary about the meaning of merges. He merges the two bodies. He merges the two bodies of fresh water and salt. Yet between them is a barrier. They never cross. Okay. What does that mean by between them is a barrier? They never cross. Well, again, those in anti-Islam or the Islamophobes, they make up rubbish. They talk, they say barriers. So they assume it is a physical barrier. They assume the Quran here talking about a physical barrier, a concrete barrier, a wall, a steel barrier. No, it says barrier. Okay, simple as that. Barrier. And what is the barrier here? Well, science later on in modern times, in recent times, discovered that the barrier is to do with the salinity, the level of salt and minerals, whatever in the salty water that prevents the fresh water and salty water from mixing together 100%. 100%. Otherwise, it will spoil the fresh water for humans and animals to drink, and might spoil the salty water for the sea animal, fish, and the rest of it. So Allah Almighty, when He created the rivers, fresh water, go flow into sea, salty water in sea or ocean, okay? They do mix partially. They do mix not fully, not 100%, which is scientifically a knowledge, a well-known knowledge that they come together and they mix partially, partly, not 100%. Okay? Because again, because there is a barrier, invisible barrier, okay, that prevent the fresh water and salty water from being one water. So because of the salinity and rest of it, modern science explain it more in details, okay, and the concentration, different concentration of salt and rest of it between fresh water and salt water. Therefore, they don't mix 100% together to become a one water. And Allah made this nature, these types of concentration in salty water and fresh water. So that is the barrier, not a concrete barrier, not a physical barrier, not a wall. Okay? Okay? So the Quran is 100% correct. The Quran said that scientific fact 14 centuries ago, and your science is still catching up with what in the Quran. So you are wrong. Okay? You are wrong. The Quran is 100%, 110% correct, 1,000,000,000% correct. Okay? So here is crystal clear. You need to understand that. Okay. I should finish the video now, but I'll keep going. I'll explain more linguistically and the views of the scholars. So nobody, you don't have any excuse now. And by the way, this video is mainly dedicated to brothers and sisters who are giving da'wah, those Muslim preachers, because when you give half information, that's damaging. When you say Allah made barrier between salty water and fresh water, and you stop without explaining that the start of the verse here, the verse in chapter verse 19, chapter 55, verse 19, which is before verse 20. Okay, you need to explain that the fresh water and salty water initially and partially merge. Okay, and then explain that there is an invisible barrier. Invisible, you can't see it. It's not a brick wall. It is not a steel wall. It's not a concrete wall. It's to do with the salinity. It's to do with the concentration of salt in the water, salt water, and rest of it. Okay, and modern science trying to catch up with what the Quran said centuries ago, 14 centuries ago. Okay, so I hope this explains. Okay, I'll stop sharing here. Okay. I'm going to share another translation of the verse in English as well. So, the exact meaning, just to confirm. So just so you know. Okay. All right. Here, okay. This is Sahih International, the translation of Sahih International. Obviously, anything in English is not Quran. This is the translation of the meaning of the Quran. The Quran is in Arabic. Okay? I don't. Someone will jump and say, "What does that? Why? Why is that?" Well, because this is when you have computer, the source code remains in the same this language in IT language. They don't make it in your own dialect in Sri Lanka or in Alaska or in Japanese. There is a universal source code in IT language. Okay, so Allah maintained the glorious Holy Quran in Arabic. Okay, as you know, when the Bible they started to translate Bible to 100 million language, the meaning lost in translation. Okay, okay, and now you have 100 million language and they vary. The translation between each version of the Bible, as you know the story. It's not our topic now. Okay, so let's go here. This is the translated Quran, the Sahih International. Verse 55, chapter 55, verse 19. He released the two seas. Two seas here referring to fresh water and salty water. In Arabic, you can refer to a fresh river, fresh water, as a sea as well. Okay, just in case you understand. Okay, he released the two seas meeting side by side, side by side. Okay, right. Between them is a barrier, so neither of them transgress. Keyword here: transgress, transgresses. Okay, so neither of them transgresses. So basically, as explained, they meet in the beginning, and afterwards, barrier, invisible barrier, so they don't spoil each other. They don't transgresses, right? So you still have you. Allah made that, so we have our fresh water. You can drink fresh water. Your animal drink fresh water. Your plants drink fresh water. Because if you drink, if they transgresses and if the two waters become salty water, we will be dead. We'll end up drinking salty water and will be dead, and no life will be on earth. Okay? So this is basically the response. However, as I said, I'll keep going because I still am going to respond more in details. Okay? Okay, and probably I'll share an article as well later on if you want me to do that. I pin the article at the end of the video so you can read. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, this is the title will be the title for the video: refuting the claim that the Quran denies the meeting of fresh and salty water. Okay, and salt water, Quran chapter 55, verse 19 to verse 20. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We'll start to read what I prepared here so you guys be able to know what I'm talking about. Well, all praise is due to Allah, and blessing and peace be upon the messenger of Allah and upon his family, his companions, and those who follow his guidance. Among the doubts repeated by the enemies of Islam is their claim that the Noble Quran in chapter 55, verse 19 to 20, in the statement of Allah, He released the two bodies of water meeting together between them is a barrier, so neither of them transgresses. This is, as I said, chapter 55, verse 19 to 20. Allegedly states that fresh water and salty water never mix at all and under any circumstances. They then argue that reality shows that meeting of rivers and seas and even the occurrences of mixing in some places, and they imagine that this constitutes a flaw in the glorious Holy Quran. In reality, this doubt is based on a distortion of the meaning of the verses itself, not on a sound understanding of it, nor on the interpretation of our pious predecessors, nor on the statements of the leading scholars of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. First, as I explained before, the Quran itself demolishes this doubt and claim. The first thing to be said to the skeptic is this: you have attributed to the glorious Holy Quran what it did not say. The verse did not say they don't mate. In fact, rather, it said mating together. This alone is sufficient to invalidate the false claim of anyone who alleges that the glorious Holy Quran denies the very mating or contact of the two bodies of water. The Quran affirms two matters together: A, that they meet, the fresh water and salty water; B, and that between them is a barrier, so neither of them transgresses. Therefore, the discussion is not about denying contact altogether. Rather, it is about the existence of a limit, a barrier, and a divine determination that prevents one of them from overwhelming the other in a manner that would remove its properties and function for which Allah created it. Here the flow in the whole doubt becomes clear. The skeptic built his objection on a meaning that the verse does not state in the first place. Okay. Second, what is the meaning of he released the two bodies of water? The word maraja in Arabic, in the language of Arabs, conveys the meaning of letting loose, releasing, and allowing movement and meeting, not total prevention of nearness. For this reason, the leading exegetes or people who explain the Quran explained the verse to mean that Allah released the two bodies of water and let them meet, then placed between them a barrier. We said that invisible barrier, not a brick, not a wall, brick wall. Okay, so that neither of them would transgress against the other. So the meaning is not he created two bodies of water that can never come near one another, nor he created two bodies of water between which contact is impossible, nor he denied every form of partial mixing. Keyword here, partial. Okay? So, rather, the meaning that Allah Almighty assigned to each of them, each of the salty water and fresh water, a limit, a measure, and a cosmic law by which one does not corrupt the other. Third, Imam al-Tabari interpretation destroys the claim of absolute non-mixing. Imam al-Tabari, may Allah be pleased with him, is one of the greatest exegetes, and his words on this verse, people who clarify the Quran, and his words on this verse are clear that what is intended is the prevention of transgression and encroachment, not the denial of the very meeting. Among what he stated in his tafsir clarification is that the meaning of the statement of Allah, between them a barrier, is a partition. He also explained, so neither of them transgresses, to mean that neither of them transgresses against the other. That is, neither of them overcomes the other. Thus, Imam al-Tabari's explanation revolves around A, the existence of two bodies of water; B, the occurrence of meeting between them; C, the existence of a barrier; D, the prevention of one of them from corrupting or overpowering the other. Okay? So where in Imam al-Tabari's words is there any indication that the verse says there is Never any mixing whatsoever. Nothing. No way. There is no such thing at all. Rather, what is found in his tafsir is the upright Arabic meaning, a barrier that prevents transgression, not a barrier that denies the very meaning which the verse itself affirms. Fourth, Imam Ibn Kathir's interpretation and tafsir confirms that what is intended is the prevention of the encroachment, not the denial of meeting. Imam Ibn Kathir, may Allah be pleased with him, explained the verse by stating that Allah placed between the two bodies of water a barrier that is a separating partition, so that this one does not transgress against that one. He therefore understood the verse just as Ahlul Sunnah, as a whole. A second, brothers. Complete here. Okay. So he therefore understood the verse, that's Imam Ibn Kathir, he therefore understood the verse just as Ahlul Sunnah as a whole understood it to mean the intended meaning is the prevention of aggression, domination, and corruption. If the meaning of the verse, according to Ibn Kathir, had been that any kind of mixing, contact, or meeting between the two waters is impossible, he would have said so. But he did not say that. Rather, he built the meaning upon the words. So neither of them transgresses, meaning that neither of them overwhelms the other. And this is the very core of the response to that claim, false claim or doubt made by the Islamophobes. Fifth, Imam al-Qurtubi interpretation establishes the same meaning. Imam al-Qurtubi, rahimahullah, may Allah be pleased with him, followed the same path, stating that between them is a barrier that is a partition preventing one from encroaching upon the other. Okay? His explanation conveys with that of Al-Tabari and Ibn Kathir in the fundamental meaning. A, there are two bodies of water. B, there is meeting of water. C, there is a barrier, invisible barrier. Usually, there is no brick wall, as I said. Okay. D, there is prevention of transgression. Means there is no fresh water does not overwhelm or take over the other water, and vice versa. This interpretation is the interpretation of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the consensus of the scholars of Sunni Muslims, and it accords with the wording of the Quran, the language of the Arabs, and observed reality. 6. What is the meaning of so neither of them transgresses? This expression is the key to the entire response. Allah did not say they don't mix, nor did he say they never mix at all, nor did he say they never come into contact in any sense. Rather, Allah said, so neither of them transgresses. In the language of the Arabs, transgression in Arabic, baghi, means A, encouragement, overstepping an excess. C, going beyond the proper limit. So the correct meaning is Allah placed between the two bodies of water a barrier preventing one from overwhelming the other in a way that removes what Allah intended of the distinctive properties of each one. This meaning is more precise, more eloquent, more truthful, and more learned than the simplistic understanding produced by the people of doubt and those Islamophobes. And then falsely attributed to by them to the Quran. Seventh, the Quran explains itself. Allah Almighty in Surah Al-Furqan says, and it is He who released the two bodies of water, this one fresh and sweet, and this one salty and bitter. And He placed between them a barrier and a forbidding partition. Okay. All right. And what chapter was this? Surah Al-Furqan. Al-Furqan chapter. Okay. And this is chapter 25, verse 53. Okay. Here Allah explicitly mentioning the fresh body of water and the salty body of water and mentioned the barrier between them. Reflecting on this verse together with the verse originally we're speaking about, chapter 55, verse 19 and 20, shows that what is intended is A, the distinction Allah placed between the two types of water, B, the preservation that prevents the loss of their distinctive properties, C, the establishment of an ordered system containing wisdom and benefit. It is not a far-fetched philosophical claim that if any part of river water meets any part of sea water, then the Quran is thereby invalidated. That is not interpretation, rather it is misuse of language and misuse of the text. Eighth, did any of the leading scholars of our pious predecessors, the Salaf, say that the verse denies every form of partial mixing? The answer is simple and it is no. Rather, what the leading scholars and the people who explain the Quran transmitted is that Allah placed between them a barrier preventing transgression. Indeed, some scholars from Ahlul Sunnah explicitly stated a very important meaning, namely that fresh water may pour into salt water, yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Almighty Allah, has nevertheless placed laws and limited that preserve the intended function of each of them. Therefore, the issue is not one of absolute absence of contact, rather it is one of the absence of transgression, corruption, and removal of distinctive properties. And this is the correct understanding. Ninth, the understanding of the righteous Salaf, our pious predecessors, and Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the consensus of the Sunni scholars of Islam. The methodology of our pious predecessor in clarifying the Quran is based on great principles. A, understanding the Quran according to the language of Arabs. B, referring verses back to their counterpart. C, affirming what the text affirms without distortion. D, not forcing upon the text what it does not bear. E, stopping at the wording of the revelation and its correct meanings. Upon this methodology, Ahlul Sunnah say concerning this verse only what the text itself indicates. A, the two bodies of water meet. B, between them is a barrier. C, neither of them transgresses against the other. This is the correct outward meaning of the verses. This is the interpretation of the leading scholars, and this is what befits the speech of Allah. As for someone who replaces the wording so neither of them transgresses with they never mix at all, then attacks that fabricated meaning. This is not a discussion of the Quran, rather it is a discussion of a falsehood invented by that person. And 10th, is there a consensus of the Ummah? Yes, of course, the Ummah is agreed on a number of matters here. A, that the Quran is the truth and contains no falsehood. B, that these verses are among the signs of Allah pointing to His wisdom and power. C, that what is intended by them is not the false meaning promoted by the Islamophobes and people of doubt. D, that Allah placed between them, that between the two bodies of water, a barrier preventing transgression and encroachment. As for some uh, people, a scholar details such as identifying the exact type of the two bodies of water in some opinions or clarifying the precise nature of the barrier in full detail. There may be differences among the scholars, and this is a known matter in the books of tafsir. But this does not affect the agreed fundamental foundational meaning that we have mentioned above, nor does it grant the people of falsehood any right to distort the verses. The difference is substantial between A, consensus on the correct general meaning, B, and difference regarding some exegetical details. And this is part of scholarship and fairness. The decisive debate argument against the skeptic, it may be said to the skeptic in brief and conclusive words, you say the Quran claims that the two bodies of water don't meet, whereas the Quran itself says meeting together. You say that the Quran denies every form of mixing or contact, whereas the verse does not say this. Rather, it says, so neither of them transgresses. You claim that this is the interpretation of the Muslims, whereas the scholars and great imams such Imam al-Tabari, Imam ibn Kathir and Imam al-Qurtubi all interpret the verse as referring to a barrier preventing transgression and encroachment, not according to the meaning that you have invented. Okay? Thus, it becomes established that your objection as an Islamophobe and anti-Islam is not to the Quran but to a distorted meaning that you have invented and falsely attributed to the Quran. Okay, so at the end of this video I would like to conclude and say the Quran, the final conclusion in very brief terms is this: the Quran did not say that fresh water and salt water never mix at all and under any circumstances. Rather, it said that they meet and that Allah placed between them a barrier that is a partition and divine and a divinely set measure preventing transgression and encroachment. This is the interpretation of the leading scholars of Islam, such as Imam al-Tabari, Imam ibn Kathir, Imam al-Qurtubi, and it is consistent with the understanding of our righteous Salaf predecessors and Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So the dawah is not based on the text of the Quran, nor on the interpretation of the Salaf, nor on the consensus of the Ummah and the scholars. Rather, it is based on distorting the meaning and then attacking the distorted meaning. And Allah has spoken the truth while the false fires have lied. At the end of this video, I would like to thank our brother and sister in Islam for listening, and please share this video, hit the button, share, favorite this video, share as much as you can, and may Allah bless you, Ameen, and Jazakallah khair, may Allah reward you, Ameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.